Welcome, dear conference attendees, to this session called Application Self-Service and Governance with Nutanix COM. My name is Mayank Gupta, and I lead the product marketing for automation and AI ops for Nutanix. Now, many of you are here in this session because you realize that application complexity is on the rise. It's partly because of several reasons. First, as the application components increase in number, it takes more time to provision them, and people usually don't know who is responsible. Further, as the process of deploying an application moves between different teams, the application team, the operations team, the database teams, the knowledge silos can often lead to time being wasted. And last but not the least is the people. As different groups have different ownerships, that can often lead to different requirements and wastage in time. This is where Nutanix COM comes in. Let's take another scenario on how your IT teams are often stretched thin, as while they get remote services and application services and all the cloud services that they have to manage, eventually they have to deliver all these services to a myriad set of teams. Now, the problem, as compounded by the points that I showed earlier, is compounded by the fact that all these provisioning takes time because there is only a single set of people trying to deliver all these services, leading to weeks and days that takes in provisioning. Now let's look at another model, which is powered by self-service. Here at the center is a self-service portal. And with this self-service portal, if all these services can quickly come in and be delivered to IT support teams, OS teams, application teams, then the task of delivering these services becomes much more faster. It reduces cost, it reduces time and frictions. And that is the fundamental proposition of self-service. But let's not stop there. Let's actually make the automation much more powerful. And that's where Nutanix COM comes in. With Nutanix COM, you can not only self-service and provide governance, but you can also manage your applications, as I'll illustrate in this presentation, as well as have your applications deployed across clouds, private clouds, as well as public clouds. Before I start into the webinar, I wanted to share with you that whatever I'm going to show with you today, you can actually go and test it out yourself. So the URL is there. And what we've done is we have created an online portal where you can actually provision COM within a fraction of a minute. And once you sign in through a automated and guided walk me tour, you can actually cover aspects of provisioning an application, creating blueprints, projects, and test out the marketplace themselves. So again, I would highly recommend that after this webinar, you try this out and see how automation through COM is such a powerful construct. Now, as I said earlier, let's talk about self-service and governance, which is one important aspect of how to make teams much more effective and how to really leverage automation. So once you log into Nutanix COM, what you would be faced with is a marketplace. Marketplace is essentially where we publish all the applications which an organization has created. You can use public, you can use other applications. So here you can see SUSE VM here, there are Redis, there is Jenkins, so all these applications. But you can also publish your own application on this portal. And just to get you started, we always give you more than 50 integrated, pre-integrated blueprints. And it makes the job of your end users, if you're an IT admin, then it would be your end user. But if you are an application developer, then you can just log into this portal and get an application of your choice within a fraction of minutes. And that makes the marketplace very powerful because this is what empowers self-service. Now, once you like an application that you want to use, there are no longer the days where you actually send a ticket, wait for some time, then wait for multiple teams. In fact, right here, as you can see, once you click in one of those tiles in the marketplace, we chose Hadoop in this example. we see that launching an application is as simple as clicking a button, and we can choose the version that we want to use with it. We can see what kind of resources this is going to take. Once that application is launched, as you can see, you're shown a window which shows that what are the resources being used with that application, if that application is running, and other things. And last but not the least, and I'll go into a lot more details about this in the following slides, this is where the operators or the end users, the developers, can also manage the application. For example, what you see on the left-hand side here is if you have an application, again, Hadoop in this case, you can scale it out, scale it in, create, start, stop. So for instance, if you're not using an application anymore, you can stop it so that you stop wasting resources for your organization, right? So managing the life cycle of an application becomes much more easier once you have these set of actions associated with an application. So you just saw that how easy through the car marketplace can it be to self-service if you're a developer or if you're an IT admin and you actually consume an application. Now, there is one more way that you can actually consume an application, and let me share it with you. And this is leveraging ITSM tools. So Nutanix Calm is actually API driven. And with these APIs, you can integrate a gamut of ITSM tools like services, ServiceNow, Sharewell, BMC, and you can actually provision applications via ServiceNow tickets as well. And that way, you can associate a approval flow with providing an application or services to your end user. I'll show you an example of ServiceNow just because we have a plugin for that. But as I illustrated in the last slide, the self-service works with pretty much all the ITSM tools. So here's a scenario in which an IT user, let's say who needs an application, will file a ServiceNow ticket. The ServiceNow ticket via the Calm plugin will actually talk to the Calm marketplace. This is all done via REST APIs. Now, once it goes into the marketplace, tasks such as provisioning the VM, doing all the installation and configuration, and delivering and updating the CMDB all happen in the background. So the end user doesn't have to worry about it. All he has to do is justify, hey, I need an application and why I need it, and everything happens in the backend. And this makes the task of provisioning an application so much more easier. Again, when it comes to self-service, obviously you must be thinking, hey, what happens to RBAC? Don't worry, we have integration with LDAP servers. So whenever it comes to different set of permissions, who can actually create a marketplace or who can create, so let me talk about this. So admins are people who can actually add infrastructure and resources and manage products. Developers, these are end users who can actually create applications. So we have blueprints. Blueprints, I'll talk about blueprints a little more, but these are set of rules in which are used to create an application. And then consumers are end users who can launch an application from a marketplace. And operators who are users who can actually perform lifecycle actions on tools. So again, using Active Directory integration, you can assign users each of these permissions. And based on their permissions, whenever they log into Calm, there's the set of actions that they can do would change. For example, an operator might not see all the set of applications which a developer or an admin can see, right? Similarly, an operator might not be able to perform all the tasks which a developer or a consumer is able to do. So again, with this RBAC, we can also ensure that while the self-service is available, it's also very powerful for the end users and for the admins so that they are in charge of what is happening. One more very important part, again, that comes with the part of being of self-service is that we want to track as and when these applications are launched. So again, Nutanix Calm gives you the ability to log every action and response. So as you can see, when you launch a service, all the services that, when you launch an application, all the services that are associated with it, it has a timestamp and as well as a user stamp on it, tracking on who launched the service and when and why and across environment. And we let you export these logs so you can use them for archiving or editing purposes in the future. So that again makes it very powerful that even if you're enabling self-service, you know exactly who is using what at what time. Now, one important thing, especially this is very relevant in these time and age, is oftentimes what happens is end users will, and again, that's not because they have ill will, it's just that they're human being, right? So they will launch an application, they'll do the task, and sometimes forget about it. Now, if they're on a private cloud, it's okay, those resources have been provisioned. But let's say you're doing this on a public cloud, then that meter on AWS or Azure or GCP is running constantly. So it's very important that the admin has a view on where the resources are being consumed, and so that if resources are being wasted or he realizes it's an application is not being used, we can shut it down, saving resources. So here's an example of the Showback feature of Nutanix COM, which shows you how you can see the cost that is incurred across your private cloud. So for example, all that needs to be done is the admin will set up define the vCPU and memory and shortage cost. And then once that is done with every application, depending on how many VMs it's using, it can actually give you a dollar amount on this is the money that has been spent on a particular application, right? And then as I showed earlier, right, you can associate that VM with a set of application, you can associate that VMs with a set of projects. Projects are like teams and you can break it into different teams. That way, it becomes very easy for the IT admin to show which department is using the most amount of resources. It can also be an easy tool to show where the resources are being used, where they're being wasted, etc., etc. So again, as a part of governance, this becomes very useful in seeing where are the dollars, where the valuable dollars are being spent. Now, let's talk about application lifecycle management. So what you just saw before this was self-service. Now let's talk about application lifecycle management, which is a very important construct in automation. Now, the fundamental block of Nutanix COM that is used to create an application and then manage it is a blueprint. What is a blueprint? Blueprint essentially has two parts. It's a set of components, which these could be VMs, base applications, configuration policies, network settings. And then you have some policies which define, hey, these are my passwords and usernames for security. Please use these URLs or for connectivity to private cloud or public cloud. It also shows the dependencies, how the applications, how the VMs are all connected to each other, right? So with these set of two important components and policies, we essentially define a blueprint. Essentially, a blueprint can be used to manage the lifecycle of an application, right? From provisioning, configuring, scaling it up, or scaling it down. Let's say there are a lot of resources that you need. You see a lot of web traffic, so you need to scale up the web server. All that can be done through predefined steps in a blueprint. You can perform upgrades and even delete applications. So again, the concept of a blueprint makes managing an app much more easy, and scaling an app with day 0 to day n much more easier. So let me go through this in a step-by-step manner. So again, like I said, you can go to the demo and try it out yourself. So, but here's an example of what a blueprint looks like. It's essentially a visual representation of how an application is created. So you can see Hadoop master and slave here. The arrow indicates dependencies, which is to say the slave is actually dependent on the master. So the master should come up before the slave can come in. And that makes the understanding of dependencies very easy. What we also do is we create, so in each of these tiles that you see, these are VMs, and each of these VMs, we have steps. These steps could be installing a package and connecting them. So again, it's almost like a visual way of creating an application. So, but let's not stop there. In each of these steps, as you can see, you can actually add existing PowerShell scripts or Bash scripts to leverage some of the automation that you might have from the past, right? So even if you have created some scripts or partial scripts, you can actually make it part of COM so that you can use all those scripts within a blueprint to deploy your applications. You can also call external HTTP services, again, all through a blueprint. Now, let's not just stop at VMs. With Nutanix COM, we also support containers. So these are vanilla, plain vanilla Kubernetes and containers. You can also use the Nutanix container solution, which is called Carbon. And again, as we saw with the VMs in the last slide, you can combine lifecycle management of VMs and containers in a single blueprint. So you can mix and match containers and blueprints in a single blueprint. And that makes blueprint not only very useful, but very versatile, because now how you choose to deploy your applications is entirely up to you. If you like containers, go for it. Something which is also very important about a blueprint is that you define the underlying infrastructure that's going to be used to create that application as a part of these blueprints as well. So this could be a private cloud, it could be Nutanix, it could be a competing product, it could be a three-tier, it could be an HCI solution, it could be a three-tier solution, or it could be a public cloud. But all that information is defined in a blueprint. And in fact, you can have one of the data, even in a single application, you can have, let's say, a container running on the cloud and a VM running on a on your private cloud. So again, you can mix and match all the things in different infrastructure layers, and we don't stop you from doing that. And in fact, we also allow you to import existing configurations, existing Kubernetes and containers configuration. Again, as you saw earlier in the section where we were importing the blueprint. So that again makes it easier for you to bring in pre-coded automation into a blueprint. But you would say, hey, wait, I don't want to do everything via a graphic interface. I feel more comfortable because I'm a developer writing code. And for that, we have COM DSL, which is the domain-specific language. And whatever you were able to do via GUI interface in the previous few slides, you can actually do that through a Python code. So this is true infrastructure as code now. Now you're actually writing code to provision infrastructure so that you can provision application. And that makes COM very, very powerful, right? So you can write blueprints as Python codes. You can make infrastructure, you can do versioning of your code, you can share your code across teams. So now you can not only have version control, but sharing a consistent set of applications across an organization becomes much more easier. That way, you can always ensure that the best version of an application blueprint is out there for your teams, right? You can interact with COM objects via command line, and you can also deploy CI/CD pipelines with that. Speaking of CI/CD, again, a lot of our users use COM for automation to create a continuous integration, continuous delivery platform. So for example, and I've just shown some examples here, but you can see users can check in code, which would be sent into a repository. Once the code is built, it is published to Artifactory, and then the code can be launched, tested, cleaned up, and then deleted when it's no longer used. But again, as you publish different versions of the code, you can immediately publish it through a Jenkins pipeline, test it, and run it again and again. Again, that makes the task of updating an application in a structured manner, like launching it, testing it, and cleaning it up, much more easy, much more seamless via a COM blueprint. So again, a very powerful construct. Gone are the days where you have to wait for different teams to test it out, to clean your applications. This can all be done by the developer with a few clicks of the button. Now, let's talk about multi-cloud orchestration. This is where we talk about the fundamental choice that we are offering our end users, that Nutanix COM doesn't have to stop just at your private cloud. We can actually grow across multiple clouds here. So at Nutanix, we fundamentally believe that the end user should make the call on what he wants to use. So let me spend some time here, right? For the public cloud, you can use you can use Nutanix cloud, which is called Xi, but you could also use AWS, Azure or Google Cloud. Again, in the blueprint, you can select, you will give your credentials of a particular cloud, you'll give your login and password, and then when you run an application, it's your decision, it's your prerogative to decide where you want to run that public cloud, where you want to run that application. But that is the choice for public cloud. What if you have, let's say, latency requirements or security requirements, or that your application has to be on-prem? Even in that case, we support the Nutanix AHV, so you could be running on a Nutanix HCI system, or you could be running on a competing solution. Again, this is vSphere. This is not a wrapper running around vSphere. This is actually vSphere. So we'll be running your applications on vSphere. So again, if you think of a blueprint, where you choose to run an application, whether it's the public cloud, because let's say you have some resources there, you want to provision there, or you want to run it on a private cloud, or a combination of those, that's entirely your choice, and we allow you to do that via Nutanix COM. Then comes the container platform. As I talked about earlier, we support GKE, we support Kubernetes, and even our own flavor of Kubernetes called Carbon. And then many of you, automation, as many of you will realize, is usually transcends a lot of tools, right? And we at Nutanix understand that, right? We know that maybe you have already existing code and scripts, or you like Jenkins for subset of things, or you have integration with Puppet and Chef. So via APIs and plugin integration, we allow all of that. So I showed you an example of ServiceNow and how we already have a plugin for ServiceNow, but let's not stop there, right? If you have Ansible, Jenkins, Puppet, Chef, via API calls, all of that can be wrapped up into COM or a COM blueprint so that you can make it much more easier. In fact, the CI/CD example that I showed you earlier, I would highly recommend that if you're listening to this webinar, you can just Google Nutanix COM CI/CD example. And it's a much longer video, and I didn't have the time to show all of that in a 30-second demo webinar. But that actually talks about how you can actually implement a CI/CD pipeline through Nutanix COM. Similarly, with ServiceNow, again, if you just go online, you'll be able to find how to get the ServiceNow plugin. I think the latest one is Orlando, and the one before that was New York. Again, what it shows is how to set up the plugin, how to connect your Nutanix to COM so that the next time your user files a ServiceNow ticket, that application can be provisioned to the end user. In fact, in the latest version of the ServiceNow plugin, we give you a lot more flexibilities on what you can do with the ticketing system. So earlier, you could just provision applications, but now tasks that needs scaling up of applications, those can also be automatically done via a ServiceNow ticket. Now think of it. Let's say you are an end user, you have an application up and running. Tomorrow, your application is a hit and you're getting a lot of traffic, right? You just file a ServiceNow ticket, and the ticket can actually go through the audit flow and actually scale up your application. And the end user and the end developer doesn't have to worry about what's happening on the back end, because the operator doesn't have to worry about this, because all the complexity of scaling it up is all hidden behind a ServiceNow COM blueprint that makes the job of the end operator much more easier, and that makes the job of both the IT teams and the developers much more easier. So again, a very powerful construct. I would highly suggest just see some of these examples online on how to use some of these integration. In fact, you can also go to nutanix.dev, and that has a lot of blogs giving concrete examples of each of these API integrations. And finally, towards the end of my presentation, and again, what I wanted to hopefully, the time was short and I purposely did not include any demos because we have already published all the videos, but I wanted you to at least get a sense of what can be accomplished through Nutanix COM, right? So we can, for an application via the marketplace, we can actually provide infrastructure as a service where you can deploy applications across private clouds. This is a full stack. Again, anybody who wants to implement DevOps, the best practices of DevOps can use Nutanix COM for that. As far as the infrastructure is concerned, as I showed you, not only can you use your private cloud, which could be Nutanix or competing HCI solutions, you can also use majority of the big public cloud solutions out there, as well as containers. Governance, that's a very important, anytime there is self-service, you want to make sure that there is RBAC, and there is RBAC which works with Active Directory integration. So that way you can delegate a role between different tranches, and you can assign users different levels like operators, developers, or admins, right? And again, we have audit logs, which we can show you to show which user has done what. So again, that is for security, that's for archival nature. Something which is very important, especially in this time, is the quotas in Showback. So we want to see that we're not wasting resources. We keep the teams accountable on which team is using what resources. So that's very important. And essentially, we are giving you a single plane of class, right? So now that single plane of class could be ServiceNow, or it could be Jenkins, right? But it makes bringing all your automation tools in one single place, it becomes much more easier, right? For you, you don't have to jump between tools. It's much more simpler. It helps you be much more productive. Finally, as I said again, here's a quick call to action that you don't have to take my word for what Calm can do. Just go to this URL, try out Calm. It's a guided walk me through, which actually walks you through the marketplace, the process of creating an application, scaling it up or scaling it down. Again, it's intuitive. It takes a lot of time, but that's why we've put in walk me through it in there. And there's a chat bot. So if you have any questions, you can also ask questions for there. But what is very interesting is with Calm, because it's deployed through a container in Nutanix, like turning on Calm, if you're already a Nutanix customer, literally takes 5 minutes. Unlike competing solutions, which require like a week just to get it installed, and then multiple service level agreements just to learn the new tool, this is completely integrated into the Nutanix platform. So it's much more easier to deploy within 5 minutes. And again, it's very easier to learn because it uses the same UI as the rest of the Nutanix HCI management tool, so which we call Prism. So again, highly recommended that you try out, test drive, especially some of the examples that I showed you for scaling up, creating an application, and see how you can actually enable self-service for your organization. So that was my last slide. I really appreciate you taking the time. I hope everybody has a wonderful time at SUSECON. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me or Nutanix. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.